Think you've seen the latest Vizio M-Series TV review? Well, think again. You actually probably haven't, but you're about to. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and today we're going to unbox, set up, and get basic impressions on the, what is this again? Vizio M70Q7-J03. You know what? I can go on a rant about how terrible TV naming conventions are another time. But right now we need to talk about this TV, where it came from, and what's going on. Now you may recall that not that long ago, about 6 months, I did a review of a Vizio M65Q7-H1 television. It was labeled as a 2021 TV, and I thought that was it. But apparently it's not. In fact, the M7 and M8 2021 TVs are now discontinued, and this is the replacement. This is the new M-Series, and whether it's a 2021 or 2022 TV doesn't even matter. This is the M-Series that you can buy now, the new one anyway. So we're gonna get into this and see what's different, see if there's been any performance improvements over the last Vizio M-Series we checked out. But before any of that happens, we need to unbox this thing. Before we get into it, let me know, am I the only one who's like kind of surprised that Vizio just came out with a new M-Series TV seemingly out of nowhere? Let me know about that down in the comments. Let's talk about it. And while you're down there, please click like and subscribe. It's really helping this channel get to the next level. You know we're gunning for 1 million subs. We're almost to 900,000, and I know you can help me push that the rest of the way. So thank you in advance. Now, let's do this thing. And here's everything that comes in the box. Pretty simple. Everything except for these two legs are in this box. You've got a remote with some batteries for it, a couple of clips for cable management, some screws, and just a little bit of product literature. This is so simple, I almost don't need to show you. Foot, slot, screwing. So here we go, back of the TV shot, and I gotta say, setup is going super easy so far. I really hope I'm not jinxing myself by saying that. One thing I want to point out is the build quality on this TV is far better than what I've seen from Vizio in the past. I realize that it's probably just stamped metal, but it's decent quality, and there's not a whole lot of flex or play going on here. I like that because it kind of sends a message that maybe the entire TV has been built a little bit better. The other thing I'm noticing is that all of the HDMI ports are on this side here, one of which is a surprisingly bright green. That would be the eARC port. The other thing I'm noticing is that none of them are labeled 4K 120 Hertz or otherwise, so we'll have to see what's up with that a little bit later. Now let's flip this thing around. You know what? This is a pretty smart looking TV. Honestly, I'm impressed considering this is Vizio's sort of like midline. They're right, the sign was correct. No bezels here at all. In fact, the case of the TV just kind of wraps around from the back, so there is no bezel. Interestingly, there is a little bit of a space between the top of the glass of the screen and the top border. Not a big deal. Nice broad sort of strip along the bottom. I could do without the shiny Vizio logo, maybe make that matte black in the future, Vizio, I don't know. The legs though, really great placement, right toward the center, and yet we still have some good stability on the TV. Wobble, that's normal, but it is a stable platform. So this is gonna work great on even small entertainment cabinets. Overall, I'm super impressed so far. So we've powered the TV on, and we've got to go through the usual Vizio SmartCast TV setup deal. Tell it that it is a home setup instead of a store setup, for example. One of the big differences here is that you actually have to pair the remote to the TV, and that is because it is a Bluetooth remote. That means that you don't have to have line of sight to control the TV, which I like, but it's also another Bluetooth device in your home, so you got to deal with that. Anyway, connect it to your network, whether that's Wi-Fi or Ethernet, as we're doing it here. It's going to need to do an update. After it restarts, it'll do an update check. Hopefully you are done at that point. And then comes the part where you have to accept all the terms and conditions about handing over all of your personal information. I'll say the same thing I do for every TV unboxing. do this at your own risk. If you don't allow it to send information back, which is supposed to be kind of anonymous, then you're not going to get very good suggestions for content. And since it's advertising to you all the time, personally, I'd rather it be targeted than just really random, but you make the call that you're comfortable with. Just understand what you're doing when you start accepting all these terms and conditions and issuing permission for your personal data to be transmitted. And then we are at the home screen. And man, it's already cycling through all kinds of stuff at the very top. If I have to complain about SmartCast, that's really it. The very top of the screen, really almost the entire top half, is basically advertising to you, and it kind of flips through stuff. I'm not a huge fan of that. Then you get yourself another row of trending content. Again, this is not really targeted at you. It's just stuff that people are watching. Third row, finally you get to the apps, which we'll dig into in just a moment. First thing I need to do is go into the settings menu. We'll pull that up, and we're gonna go into system first. Why? Because it's in eco mode. So we go into the power mode, and I'm gonna choose quick start because really this TV does take quite a bit of time to get started up. Now that eco mode actually doesn't have anything to do with your picture quality or picture settings. That's an entirely different drill. So we'll go into that. By default, it's set up as bright. We also have options for vivid, sports, game, which is suspiciously dim. That's weird. Calibrated dark, calibrated, which is probably where we're gonna land, right back to bright. If we go down a bit, we'll notice that color temperature is at normal. That's typical for anything that you would consider a standard mode. Go into advanced picture settings, and you can see we have settings for active full array. That's the full array local dimming settings. Also local contrast. That's going to try to enhance the contrast of the TV. We'll futz around with this stuff a little bit later. Gamma, interestingly enough, is set to 2.1. I suppose that's about what you would expect for a bright or standard setting. But I want to go back. As you guys know, I'm going to go straight for what's going to be the most accurate, and that would be calibrated. Calibrated dark, probably a little bit darker than I want, considering I have studio lights going on in here right now. I like that the ambient light sensor is off for this particular setting, and that color temperature is set to warm as expected. Go into advanced picture settings, and it looks like local contrast is turned off, so that kind of faked contrast is disabled by default for a calibrated mode. That's what I would expect. Active full array is at medium. We'll leave it there, but we want to check out what kind of differences we see between low, medium, and high. Already I can tell you that low is quite a bit dimmer than medium is. Now let's go into motion control. Clear action is turned off, which is great. But what's weird is that this is the only setting under motion. We've covered this before. This is basically black frame insertion, and it will introduce flicker. What I'm concerned about is that I don't get to turn off motion interpolation. So if motion smoothing is on for 24 frame per second content, I'm gonna be upset. If it makes 30 frame per second content look more like 60 frames per second, not gonna dig that either. Finally, gamma. It's set for 2.1. I'm gonna leave it here, but 2.2 is actually what you're gunning for if you want a more accurate setup. Well, that takes care of the home screen. What happens if we pop into an app? So I've popped into Netflix and I've started an SDR title. I'll go into settings. We've paused here so we don't get flagged. And we're in calibrated picture mode. That's great. So it looks like it's carried over my picture settings from the home screen into apps. That's great. We'll double check that it's done the same for HDMI inputs in a moment. But since SDR looks to be all set, let's check out Dolby Vision. We're now in a Dolby Vision title. We'll click the settings menu, go into picture settings, and we're in Dolby Vision calibrated mode. There's also a calibrated dark available. Dolby Vision game, sports, vivid, bright, the usual. So we'll stick with calibrated mode. Just double check some other stuff here. Dolby's usually really good about setting standards. And if we go into motion control, clear action still turned off. Gamma's still at 2.1, which is interesting. All right, wow, this really doesn't require a whole lot of setup at all, which is great because I really thought I jinxed myself earlier. So I'll click the input button, and it looks like it's already labeled our 4K Blu-ray player. We'll pop into that. Now what's cool is I didn't even have to go turn on CEC, but it's automatically already controlling the Blu-ray player, so that's great integration. So we'll go ahead and pop into the picture settings, and it looks like by default it's in HDR10 bright. We'll move to calibrated here. So it does look like you do need to go into at least one of your HDMI inputs and select some picture settings there. So we've taken care of HDR in this case. We would do the same for Dolby Vision and also the same for SDR. All right, so first impressions, they're pretty good. And that was before I checked out the price of this TV. From 50 to 75 inches, talk about competitive. This is definitely way better than the M-Series of last year. That's a great start right off the bat. I did notice a couple of things though. This TV does have an Achilles heel, I think, so we're gonna have to dig into that. But I know enough now to say you are definitely going to want to check out the full review because I think you're gonna be shocked by what you hear. Thanks as always for watching, everyone. Let me know in the comments right now, what is like the money spot for a 65-inch TV? Tell me about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and here's 2 other videos that I think you'll like.